Hello, this is Stan Lubeck. So glad that you've joined us here at Coaching Pit Stop. Today we're going to talk about Courage is Calling. Yes, this is a book summary of the book Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday, which has a subtitle, Fortune Favors the Brave. You know, just here recently, Matt Damon's latest commercial quotes these very words, Fortune favors the brave, to goad people to invest in Bitcoin. Well, I don't know if that's brave or stupid. Being brave for the wrong cause is not an asset, and Matt Damon is getting great pushback on social media. So we need more courageous people in our world today, that's for sure. We benefit from courageous people in history who sacrificed even everything for our benefit. So today, employees see the need for managers with more courage and urgency for innovation. They see it, they need it, but they don't see it in their managers. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, has talked about how he doesn't do bet the company bets because he doesn't have to. It's complacency that puts you in a position to have to take huge risks. It's the company that, after years of ignoring the trends, finally has to change or die. It's when you're making up for early deficiencies that you have to gamble everything. Better, he says, to consistently make good bets every day. Calculated instead of careless. Incremental instead of incredibly dangerous. Do the hard thing now. Be steady and courageous today in everything that counts. Lack of courage immobilizes and paralyzes decision-making on tough decisions. There's a price to pay for timidity. Those with courage are the innovators. Those lacking courage are viewed as yes men lacking a spine. Statesmen are those who display courage and stand on principles, no matter the opposition. Politicians, however, blow with any prevailing wind. How do we help people act more courageously? Coaching is about results, and with coaching, everyone can improve. And I believe that courage is coachable, even for the cowardly lions. Well, what's the first step? First of all, we all have to realize that fear is universal. Everybody experiences fear. There's a reason that the most repeated phrase in the Bible is, do not be afraid. We all experience fear. We fear what people will think of us. We fear that we don't have what it takes. We fear we'll be found out as imposters. We fear that we are not smart enough. We fear that we don't speak well enough and have an accent where people can understand what we're saying. We fear that we are not disciplined enough. We fear the embarrassment of going bankrupt. We fear letting our parents or our spouse down. We don't want our children to be embarrassed of us. Fear can motivate us to avoid crisis. But a bigger problem that leads to failure is that fear immobilizes, preventing us from acting. With no action, there is no progress and no innovation, and we are left with the status quo, which has been defined as, quote, the current mess we are in. We need to make progress. It takes courage to have progress. So fear stops us from doing the right thing on the path to success. Fear stops us from standing up against the bully in the playground and in the office. Fear causes us to shrink back and hope there is an adult in the room who is courageous that will take care of things. Fear causes us to delay speaking up and ignore the problem, hoping it all will go away. So the second thing we have to know is that courage has a cost. There's a price to pay for courage. That's why many people aren't very courageous. They don't want to have to pay the price. Some of you have maybe seen the movie Serpico. The reason that movie was made was a guy by the name of Frank Serpico. He blew the whistle on corruption inside the New York Police Department in 1970. Another honest cop congratulated him. But why didn't you stand with me? Frank Serpico asked. And the answer was, what? The man replied, and be an outcast like you? Well, courage is also scary. Ryan Holiday, in this book, Courage is Calling, says there is nothing worth doing that is not scary. There is no one who has achieved greatness without wrestling with their own doubts, anxieties, limitations, and demons. Courage can be learned through preparation. To each, Winston Churchill would say, there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared and unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. Obstacles are the way. Expect it. Be scared. You can't help that. William Faulkner put it, but don't be afraid. Coaches are dealers in hope and slayers of fear when the inevitable obstacles rear their ugly heads. Every crisis is a teachable moment. There is no better teacher than adversity, Malcolm X would say. Every defeat, every heartbreak, every loss contains its own seed, its own lesson on how to improve your performance the next time. Courage is calling. Courage is calling all of us. But what are we going to do? You see, overcoming fear of what others think is a significant step in the right direction. You can't let fear rule, because there has never been a person who did something that mattered without pissing people off, as Ryan Holiday writes. Secondly, do something courageous today. Whatever it is, do something today. Make progress. There's a story about Nikita Khrushchev after he became premier of the Soviet Union. On stage, speaking to the Politburo, he denounced the crimes of Stalin's regime. Anonymously, some unnamed member passed a note to the front of the room. Yes, it said, but where were you at that time? Khrushchev struggled to answer, paused, and then replied, I was where you are now, in the audience, anonymous, doing nothing, just like everyone else. Well, the third thing we need to know, if we're going to experience courage, we need to commit. Make a commitment. Set clear and specific deadlines for accountability and next steps so that you don't shrink back when you need to step forward. Ryan Holiday writes, the fear you feel is a sign. If courage is never required in your life, you're living a boring life. I think that's well said. The fourth thing we learn, change requires courage. We have countless expressions reminding us the tall poppy gets cut down. You can't beat City Hall. And yet, if everyone believed this, if fear ruled supreme, not only would those expressions become effective truths, but good would never triumph over evil. New would never break through the status quo, and nothing would ever be improved. That can't be what we were put on this planet to do. And the fifth thing we learned is that nihilism is for losers. Nobody became great without believing that such a thing is worth doing. Nobody is brave without first braving and triumphing over cynicism and indifference. Do not be afraid of greatness, Shakespeare said. Let it enter your blood and spirit. Fight for it. Who cares if they don't understand? Those who laugh at your charge up the mountain are those who can't even imagine taking the first step onto uncertain ground. You'll prove them wrong, and even if you don't, at least you were brave enough to go for it. Nihilism is for losers. And finally, the sixth thing we learn is we learn to endure. For selfish reasons, Churchill could have quit, just as you can quit at any time. Churchill was 54 years old in 1929. He could have retired. Out of spite, he could have retreated to his old pursuits and pleasures. He did not do that. When England finally called, he wasn't just ready to answer, he had readied himself for precisely the crisis they called for him to solve. Churchill would be the explosive charge they and the world needed. Courage is about being wholehearted for a cause worthy of sacrifice. It is fascinating to know that the root word for courage means heart. Sounds like being wholehearted, huh? You know, as C.S. Lewis wrote, courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point. Courage is calling. Will you answer the call? Will you coach others to step up when others are stepping out? The next session, I want to talk about the best questions that you can ask, whether you're coaching yourself or coaching somebody else. What are the essential questions that will help move you and others forward? So, thanks for coming. Bye for now.